The whispers started when 19-year-old Layla Hassan entered the prestigious MIT research laboratory. Probably doesn't even speak English properly, one grad student muttered. Security risk, another added. None of them knew they were looking at the youngest researcher ever invited to join the Nobel Committee. Layla Hassan adjusted her hijab as she walked through the gleaming corridors of MIT's quantum physics research laboratory, her backpack heavy with advanced theoretical equations that would revolutionize particle physics. At 19, she had already completed her doctorate at Harvard and published 17 peer-reviewed papers in the most prestigious scientific journals in the world. But today, entering this lab for the first time as a visiting researcher, she looked like just another Middle Eastern girl who didn't belong in America's most elite scientific institution. The laboratory buzzed with the quiet intensity of cutting-edge research. PhD students hunched over computers running quantum simulations. Postdoctoral researchers calibrated million-dollar equipment, and senior scientists discussed theories that could reshape humanity's understanding of the universe. But all of that intellectual activity paused when Layla entered. Graduate student Marcus Webb looked up from his workstation, his eyes immediately focusing on Layla's headscarf and modest dress. After 3 years at MIT, he had grown accustomed to the laboratory's exclusivity. Brilliant minds from the world's best universities, most of them white, most of them male, all of them vetted through rigorous academic programs. "Hey, I think we have a lost freshman," Marcus whispered to his lab partner, Jennifer Kim, probably looking for the Islamic Student Center. Jennifer glanced over and frowned. How did she even get past security? This is a restricted research facility. You need clearance just to be in here. Dr. Richard Peterson, the lab's associate director, was explaining quantum entanglement principles to a group of graduate students when he noticed the disruption. His eyes fixed on Layla with immediate suspicion. 30 years of academic experience had taught him to be protective of his laboratory's security and reputation. "Excuse me," Dr. Peterson called out, his voice carrying across the lab and causing all conversation to stop. "This is a restricted research facility. You'll need to leave immediately." Layla turned toward him with calm, intelligent eyes. She had faced this kind of reaction before, in academic conferences, university libraries, research symposiums. The assumption was always the same. A young woman in hijab couldn't possibly belong in advanced scientific spaces. "I'm here for the quantum tunneling research project," Layla replied in perfect, unaccented English. "I have my authorization paperwork." Marcus snorted with amusement. "Authorization for what? To clean the equipment? The janitorial staff doesn't work during research hours." The joke drew chuckles from several students. Cell phones appeared as some began recording what they assumed would be the amusing removal of an obviously confused undergraduate student. Dr. Peterson approached with the measured steps of someone accustomed to handling disruptions. "Miss, I don't know how you got past security, but this laboratory requires specialized clearances and advanced academic credentials. I'm going to need you to leave before I call campus security." Layla reached into her backpack, withdrawing a folder of documents. But before she could open it, lab supervisor Dr. Williams emerged from his office, drawn by the commotion. "What's the situation here, Richard?" Williams demanded, his eyes immediately fixing on Layla with obvious displeasure. "Unauthorized individual in the research lab," Peterson reported. "Claims to have authorization, but obviously doesn't understand the security requirements." Williams studied Layla with the calculating gaze of someone who had spent decades protecting sensitive research from industrial espionage and security threats. Her appearance, young, Middle Eastern, modestly dressed, set off every alarm bell that post-9/11 academia had programmed into his mind. "Miss," Williams said with false patience, "this facility conducts classified research for the Department of Defense and NASA. Foreign nationals require extensive background checks and security clearances. I'm afraid you'll need to leave immediately." The word "foreign" hung in the air like an accusation. Jennifer Kim, who was herself a naturalized citizen from South Korea, shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. The laboratory's hierarchy was clear, and challenging senior faculty was career suicide. But graduate student Alex Chun, working on his own quantum computing research, noticed something others had missed. The equations visible in Layla's open notebook weren't undergraduate physics. They were advanced theoretical work that looked remarkably sophisticated. "Dr. Peterson," Alex said hesitantly. Maybe we should actually look at her paperwork before. Mr. Chun, Peterson cut him off sharply. Security protocols don't allow for exceptions based on paperwork that could easily be forged. Return to your research immediately. Layla's phone buzzed with an incoming call. The caller ID was visible to nearby students. Professor Layla Hassan, Nobel Committee. Probably her handler. Marcus whispered loud enough for others to hear. These people always have suspicious connections. The racist comment drew uncomfortable silence from some students, but no one spoke up to challenge it. Academic cultures rewarded conformity and discouraged boat rocking, especially by junior researchers. Dr. Williams reached for his radio. Security to Lab 7. We have an unauthorized individual who needs escort removal. Dr. Williams, Layla said calmly. Before you do that, I suggest you actually review my credentials. I'm Dr. Layla Hassan, visiting researcher from Harvard, here to consult on your quantum tunneling project. The title doctor caused several students to pause. She was clearly too young to be a PhD, but her confidence was unsettling. Doctor, Peterson laughed mockingly. Miss, I don't know what game you're playing, but impersonating academic credentials is a federal offense when it involves classified research facilities. Campus security arrived within minutes. 2 officers who had dealt with numerous suspicious person reports involving Middle Eastern individuals since the campus began expanding its international student population. Officers, Williams explained. We have an individual claiming academic credentials she obviously doesn't possess. She's been asked to leave multiple times and is now disrupting sensitive research operations. Security Officer Johnson approached Layla with practiced authority. In 15 years of campus security, he had removed dozens of people from restricted areas, mostly harmless but confused students, occasionally actual security risks. Ma'am, I need you to come with me immediately. You're trespassing on federal research property. Layla's phone continued buzzing. This time, the caller ID showed MIT President, Dr. Martinez. My phone keeps ringing, Layla said quietly. Perhaps you'd like me to answer it so we can clear up this confusion? Confusion? Williams scoffed. The only confusion here is how you got past multiple security checkpoints. Officers, please remove her immediately. But Alex Chun had managed to photograph one of the equations in Layla's notebook with his phone. What he saw made his blood run cold. The mathematical work was beyond anything he had seen in graduate school. Theoretical physics at a level that suggested either genius-level intellect or access to classified research that shouldn't exist. Dr. Peterson, Alex said urgently. I think you need to look at this equation. It's not possible for an undergraduate to produce this level of work. Peterson barely glanced at Alex's phone. Mr. Chun, foreign nationals are trained to memorize complex equations to gain access to American research facilities. It's a common espionage tactic. The accusation of espionage sent shockwaves through the laboratory. Students began backing away from Layla as if she carried some contagious disease. Cell phone recordings increased as the situation escalated toward what appeared to be the apprehension of an actual spy. But Layla remained perfectly calm. She had faced similar situations before. Academic conferences where her age and appearance led to assumptions about her capabilities, research symposiums where colleagues questioned her credentials, international meetings where her Palestinian heritage made others suspicious of her motivations. Officer Johnson, she said with quiet authority, before you arrest me, I suggest you call Dr. Layla Hassan at Harvard. She's expecting me to report on today's research. Dr. Layla Hassan? Jennifer Kim whispered to Marcus. Isn't that the Nobel Prize winner? The one who revolutionized quantum mechanics. Marcus dismissed the connection immediately. Probably just a coincidence. These people are trained to drop important names to confuse security. But Dr. Peterson felt his first stirring of doubt. Dr. Layla Hassan was indeed a Nobel laureate, one of the most respected physicists in the world, and a frequent collaborator with MIT's quantum research programs. Officers, Peterson said carefully, perhaps we should verify this individual's claims before proceeding with arrest. Williams was committed to his security protocol. Richard, we cannot allow potential security risks to manipulate us with name-dropping. Proceed with removal. As Officer Johnson reached for his restraints, Layla's phone rang again. This time, she answered it without asking permission, activating the speaker so her voice would carry clearly through the laboratory. Hi, Mom, she said in English, then switched to Arabic for a few words before returning to English. Yes, I'm at the MIT lab, but there seems to be some confusion about my authorization. The casual reference to Mom, combined with her comfortable use of multiple languages, created cognitive dissonance among the observers. Spies didn't typically make casual phone calls to their mothers during security incidents. The voice that responded through the speaker was crisp, professional, and carried the unmistakable authority of academic leadership. Layla, this is Professor Hassan. Are you safe? I've been receiving calls from MIT administration about a security incident involving you. The silence in the laboratory was absolute. Professor Hassan, the Nobel Prize winner, calling the young woman they were about to arrest. I'm physically safe, Mom, but the lab personnel seem to believe I'm some kind of security threat or foreign spy. Dr. Peterson felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. The young woman had just called Nobel laureate Dr. Sarah Hassan Mom. Dr. Hassan, Peterson said into the phone, his voice cracking slightly. This is Dr. Peterson at MIT. Are you telling me this individual is your daughter? That's correct, Dr. Peterson. Layla is my daughter and one of the most brilliant young physicists in the world. She's also the visiting researcher you specifically requested for your quantum tunneling project. The revelation hit the laboratory like a physical explosion. Dr. Layla Hassan wasn't just any researcher. She was the daughter of one of the most respected scientists alive, and apparently a legitimate collaborator on their most sensitive research. But the shock was just beginning. Furthermore, Dr. Sarah Hassan's voice continued through the speaker. Layla is currently the youngest researcher ever invited to join the Nobel Committee as a consulting expert. She has published more peer-reviewed research in quantum mechanics than most full professors, and she holds 3 degrees from Harvard, including a PhD she completed at age 17. The numbers were staggering. A PhD at 17, multiple Harvard degrees, Nobel Committee membership at 19. The young woman they had been prepared to arrest was potentially one of the most accomplished scientists of her generation. Marcus Webb felt sick as he realized his jokes about her intelligence and English proficiency had been directed at someone who had achieved more in 19 years than he might accomplish in his entire career. Campus Security Officer Johnson slowly backed away from Layla, his restraints forgotten. In 15 years of campus security, he had never been involved in the near arrest of a Nobel Committee member. Dr. Williams pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Dr. Hassan, ma'am, we had no idea. Layla wasn't on our expected visitors list, and her appearance. We had no way of knowing her credentials. Her appearance, Dr. Williams? Sarah Hassan's voice carried an edge of steel. Are you telling me that my daughter's hijab and ethnicity led you to assume she was a security threat rather than a legitimate researcher? The question hung in the laboratory air like an indictment, which is exactly what it was. Jennifer Kim finally found her voice. Dr. Hassan, I want to apologize. I should have asked questions instead of making assumptions. But Layla wasn't interested in individual apologies. She opened her notebook, revealing pages of equations that several graduate students now recognized as groundbreaking theoretical work. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, addressing the laboratory, what you've witnessed today is exactly why diversity in STEM fields remains so challenging. Assumptions based on appearance and ethnicity continue to exclude brilliant minds from scientific collaboration. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had faced such challenges repeatedly and overcome them through sheer intellectual excellence. I am Dr. Layla Hassan. I was born in Cambridge, Massachusetts, to Palestinian immigrant parents who came to America to pursue scientific research. I speak 4 languages fluently, hold advanced degrees in physics, mathematics, and engineering, and have published research that is currently being used by NASA for Mars exploration projects. The achievements were so extraordinary that several students began recording not to mock, but to capture what was clearly a historic moment in their laboratory. But today, in one of America's most prestigious research institutions, I was treated as a terrorist because of my hijab and my heritage. Dr. Peterson stepped forward, his career clearly in jeopardy. Dr. Hassan, we sincerely apologize. This should never have happened. Dr. Peterson, Layla replied, apologies don't address systemic problems. The question is, What changes will you implement to ensure this doesn't happen to other young researchers who don't fit your expectations of what a scientist looks like? Her mother's voice came through the phone again. MIT administration is aware of this incident and will be conducting a full review. This behavior is unacceptable in any academic setting, but particularly in institutions that claim to value diversity and inclusion. The investigation that followed made national headlines. The MIT lab incident became a case study in academic discrimination and unconscious bias in STEM education. Dr. Williams was reassigned to non-research duties. Dr. Peterson received formal censure and mandatory bias training. Several graduate students faced academic review for their recorded comments. But the real change was institutional. MIT implemented new protocols for welcoming visiting researchers, mandatory diversity training for all lab personnel, and enhanced security procedures that emphasized verification over assumption. Layla's research collaboration proceeded as planned, and her work on quantum tunneling led to breakthroughs that advanced the field by decades. Her calm response to discrimination became a model for other young scientists facing similar challenges. Alex Chun, the graduate student who had tried to speak up, was personally mentored by Layla and eventually became a leading researcher in quantum computing, always crediting her example of intellectual integrity under pressure. 6 months later, Layla Hassan became the youngest person ever to deliver a keynote address at the International Physics Symposium. Her speech, titled Breaking Barriers, Science Beyond Stereotypes, was viewed millions of times and inspired countless young women and minorities to pursue STEM careers. The laboratory where she was nearly arrested now displays a plaque honoring diversity in scientific research, and her theoretical equations are prominently featured in their most advanced research projects. But perhaps the most important change was cultural. The incident sparked conversations about inclusion in academia that led to policy changes at universities nationwide. Young scientists from underrepresented backgrounds found new support systems and advocacy networks. Dr. Sarah Hassan used her Nobel Prize platform to establish a foundation supporting young researchers from marginalized communities, ensuring that brilliant minds wouldn't be excluded from scientific advancement based on appearance or prejudice. And in laboratories across America, the story of the 19-year-old Palestinian physicist who was mistaken for a security threat became a powerful reminder that genius comes in many forms, and that scientific progress requires both intellectual curiosity and cultural humility. The equations Layla developed during her MIT collaboration eventually contributed to quantum computing advances that changed technology forever, proving that diversity in scientific thinking leads to innovations that benefit all humanity. Years later, when she won her own Nobel Prize at age 25, Dr. Layla Hassan dedicated her acceptance speech to all the young scientists who had been underestimated, overlooked, or excluded from opportunities because they didn't match traditional expectations of what intellectual excellence looked like. The laboratory that had once tried to remove her now proudly claims her as an alumna, and her portrait hangs in MIT's Hall of Distinguished Researchers, a permanent reminder that brilliance transcends boundaries, and that true scientific advancement requires opening minds as well as laboratories to the full spectrum of human talent.